Hello my friends, in this video we will talk about Jhin. So basically I'm kinda making a guide and I will explain you everything that you need to master this champion. So let's quickly go over items first. You usually always start D-Blade, then boots have a lot of value on Jhin because you're getting AD on Boots have a lot of value on Jhin because you're getting AD by that. What I would advise you, like what the current best build is, in my opinion, is Stormrazor first, then followed up by either Rapid Fire or Infinity Edge. You can build Rapid Fire if you want a more supportive build and not deal that much damage, but obviously you will have a lot of range and movement speed when you like hit from a long distance with Stormrazor's proc. Then followed up by AE, or you do the more damage heavy build, I would say, with the Infinity Edge second, and then you can even adapt between like Rapid Fire or LDR. Then there are obviously still a few other builds like Hex Optics first item into Infinity Edge. I think that's also completely good. And then there's still the Collector one into Infinity Edge, but if you want to go Collector, I think you need to snowball really hard in early game. I would always advise you that, at least on the current patch 2604, I would advise you to go Hex Optics every single time over Collector. And then the build path kind of stays the same. When it comes to runes, I will show them to you here right now. This is good for the current patch. I think you can play around with it, especially with the second rune page. Most important one is that you're taking cut down. It's really good. And the second important part is that you're not taking attack speed but 280 shards in the runes. Okay, the only really thing we need to know about his passive is that like our fourth shot, right, is always a crit and this big auto attack. That's just important to know, and usually in lane you really want to trade with that one. Then when it comes to his Q, what we want to do, and that's like the most important part about Jhin, is that it does more damage when we nuke minions before. When we're hitting an enemy, what we always want to do is, because our like fourth auto attack, it's doing execute damage, right? So our combo is always doing auto attacks, and then Q and then auto, right? You see 588 damage. Now I let it refresh, and if I would now do it the other way around, so I would auto and then Q, you see 365. That means we always want to do our auto attacks, bam bam bam. Then when we're having our fourth shot, we want to damage as hard as possible, and then always put our Q first. And now when it comes to waves, what I mean is that if we are taking down a minion, then the next one will always do more damage. You saw it here, really good, right? So let's say we're having a wave, okay, and now we're just clearing one minion. So you see the damage numbers now, Q, you see it's going up by 100 damage every single time. And now just imagine that if this would be like an enemy champion, right? So if it's like an enemy champion, then it would be really insane. So let's say like here, for example, is the enemy champion. And now what you want to do is bounce your Q. You see it does a lot of damage on the enemy now, so it makes no sense to kind of start here if you want to poke him. And this you can do a lot of times when you're playing in lane. That's like the basic Q mechanic that we need to know. When it comes to his W, we will root enemies, and you have a lot of range, and there will always be a dot on the enemies. Right, when hitting someone there's this dot. Now we can W and the target is rooted for his W. It's really important that we're having a good overview. So it's really bad if we are only looking at our screen. You should never really play locked cam. What you should do instead is always look around. Okay, can I stun someone? What can I maybe do with my W? It's super important. And then when it comes to his W, what is like really good is if you kind of predict the damage that is going on to the enemy. So let's say, for example, someone is like running into your trap. Then what you want to do is you want to pre-cast your W, so the moment something pops on the enemy, that can be damage, CC or whatever, they're just rooted, right? They're just snared. And that's super important because then they cannot dodge it. You see, if I use my trap and I pre-cast W, bam, it insta-pops. Like there's no counterplay for the enemies. And if I would do W now, they can still flash, dash, dodge, do basically anything. But it's also really important if you're playing bot lane. Like let's say your supporter is, I don't know, like let's say Nautilus, he's hooking in, doing his auto, and then you should immediately follow up with your W. Or let's say your support is doing an auto attack, then you can combine it with your W. Then when it comes to traps, a lot of people are always putting it down in the wave. That's really bad. It's only good to put it in the wave if you really need to push it or like completely, nuke the wave out basically. What you usually do in lane is put it like here, or like you cover yourself up here. A lot of times when enemies are running in lane, like let's say there would be an enemy here right now, then if an enemy runs in there, you can maybe create an opportunity to fight the enemy. That's super good and how we basically want to use the traps. Then later on, when we get to mid and late game, we always want to put them around mid waves. So like here, maybe in chokes, you can even cover yourself here. Or when you're then fogging bot side, like here is good, basically like Caitlyn traps, block the entrance. Same thing here, just put it in the middle. And then when you're playing, you will have a lot of traps around your mid lane. And by this, you can also create opportunities and just cover up yourself, right? As AD carry, safe side is super important. So here, for example, I've covered my left side, and now I can hack into the side, taking waves on mid lane. This is how we want to use our E. And then when it comes to our ultimate, a lot of people are really like hesitating on the ult, but you should most of the times just shoot. You know, because if you start ulting and then you are like, oh yeah, I'm looking around. No, you shoot and you hit, and then the target is slowed, and you shouldn't wait then, because you want to use the window where the enemy target is still slowed, right? And then you immediately want to use it. And that's kind of it already. For Jhin, summoner spells kind of always the same. You go flash, and then secondary is just adaptable, like for most AD carries. And in my opinion, Jhin is one of the easiest and most fun AD carries to play. So especially if you're kind of new to the game or like just learning, I think Jhin is like so fun. Even on these crits you're doing right, you're getting so much movement speed. It's absolutely insane. I would highly advise you to play this champion. It's a lot of fun. If you found this helpful, feel free to reach out on my Discord, my coaching Discord, or check out my Patreon. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to write me. And then I'm wishing you a nice day. Goodbye.